Hello, my stitchy friends. This is Laura from Stitching by the Shore, and this is a channel all about cross stitch. Today I'm coming to you with an extra video. This one I thought would be a little bit different and a little bit of fun to talk it through with you. You know so often that I like to change fabrics and in some cases flosses just to change up the color and look of certain designs. And so many of you have been so supportive of that. And then sometimes some of you always say you like it, but you'd be afraid to do it. So I'm just going to show you my process. I get it. Sometimes changing things up from the way the designer has shown it, when we love how it looks what the designer does it, can be a little bit scary, especially given the fact that we put in a lot of time for our stitching. But I'm always up for a color experiment and to see if things, how they'll turn out. So I thought I would do this today. I have been looking to kit up the Seasons of the Heart spring piece. It was originally in the Punch Needle Primitive Stitcher magazine, which is what I'm showing you right here. And it was originally in the spring of 2021 issue. And I believe these have all been since released from the Blue Flower. So I think you can just get them as regular charts now. So that's what it looks like. I decided to stitch this because Katie the Novel Stitcher is doing a bunny sale. Bunnies, I believe it's Best Bunnies SAL, but I will put the official hashtag down below if you're interested in checking it out, as well as Katie's channel where she talks about it. And I have been wanting to stitch these for the longest time, and I thought they have some really cute bunnies on them, so why not give it a try? Now, it's beautiful here. And if you chose to stitch it with this background fabric, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And I don't blame you one bit. But I just decided I wanted to play with the colors. And because of that, I had to change some of the flosses because what they look like here, they kind of don't look like that on the fabric I chose, just because the colors affect each other. So sometimes you have to change things up. This is charted in all DMCs or Sullivan's. I, of course, use all the DMCs, so that's what I'm using. I decided instead of going with the neutral color, I wanted to do something a little bit out of the box for springy, and I wanted to do a green. And I decided I didn't want to do a light green because some of the colors are a little bit lighter, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I ended up picking Hideaway from Bestitch Me. It's an 18 count. So let me show you, that's what it looks like. And basically, when I decided that I wanted to go with green, I pulled out some different greens and I pulled out the flosses. So that was the first thing I had to do, was pick the flosses and figure out what they were and what they look like. So let me see if I can do this or how well I can do this. I've got the DMCs. Let's put it on this side so you don't see. And so that was the first thing. I went with a bunch of different greens and I threw the flosses on them. And I think far and away, a lot of the lighter greens, I knew that the ecru could be an issue, which is right here. And then there is a very light green, 3013, that would have been an issue, I believe, too. On the darker green, I figured it would show up a little bit better. So that was my first step. So once I made the commitment to the Hideaway, I decided then I had to change up some of the colors. And the two that were the biggest problem against here are these two, 581 and 832. So these were the two that really stuck out to me as not really going with the others. This one I think was just too not even mustardy, it was just too far in the brown. That's going to be part of a flower. And again, in the original picture, it looks like a lovely kind of deeper, darker mustardy yellow, but here it just looks too brown. And then this against the green, the 581, is just a bit too yellow based. So 581 itself is kind of a yellow base as it is, but then when I put it against the green, it just wasn't something that I was loving. And again, in the original, it looks fantastic because it's against a neutral. So in order to change up my colors, I use my DMC color chart, and I do have the one with all of the actual threads in it. If there's any way you are able to get this for yourself, and I know I've seen them at 123 Stitch, and I know there's other places as well. it really is money well spent, whether you ask for it for a birthday or if you just get a chance to get it yourself. I think you'll be happy with it, especially if you are looking to change flosses or even fabric sometimes. I think it would be really helpful. So how I do this, let's first look at 581, because that was the first one I tackled. So on the back of this book here, they have the listing of all of the DMCs, and it'll tell you what family or which line it's in, and they're kind of along families. So 581 was number 12. So let me go back a little bit and find 581. And where are we? Okay, so number 12 is this row right here, and 581 is right below my fingers, right there. So what I do when I look at it, first I look at the family and I look to see if there's something else along in that same family that would work. And that was the first thing I did. And I tried a couple, I think, but really the ones that are darker that I thought would go were a little bit too dark. And I didn't want, these colors aren't the darkest in the world. They're kind of a medium. So I didn't want something that was just way too dark, because I felt like that would be too much of a contrast, because even this is a gray, but not the deepest gray you could possibly get. So I decided I didn't want to do that. So then what I do is I start to come over on the different rows of greens, and I'm looking for something that is not as yellow. So there were a few here that were really yellow as well. I decided I didn't want to do that. And I kept coming over and looking for something that might work. And the first one that came out to me was 988. So that's what it looks like here. And I'm going to show you that in relation to, did I drop it? Oh, here it is, the 581. And you'll see there is a bit of a difference between them. So we have 581 and then 988. The 988 is not as yellow, but it is still closer to the family of that than, say, a deep hunter green. My issue, though, was if I looked at it, I was a little worried that that would kind of fade in with the colors. So what I did was I looked at the number that was just next to it at 987. So let me show you those two against each other. 987 is right here, and 988. And I decided then, if I put them against, see how that 987 just shows up really nicely against this color and a little bit better than the 986. Now, I don't stop there. When I look at what I'm going to use for the flosses against the fabrics, I also take a look, here's the specific chart, and I look to see what symbols are going to show up with whatever I'm going to change. So if I'm changing from 581 to 987, and let's see if I can show you what part. If you can see. Well, first off, a lot of that 981 is all of the stems. So it's going to show up a lot, or 581. So I definitely wanted a color I felt comfortable with when I was looking at the 987. The other thing it shows up with is, where is it? Oh, that's funny. I'm looking at the symbols, and sometimes, you know how when you look at something, there it is, 3013. So these two greens would go next to each other. Now, in the original, it would look like these two. But I decided that I didn't want that. And so if I go with the 987 and the 3013, those two together. And I did like how those two looked together. And I kind of put them up against the fabric. And I decided, I was a little worried about 3013, but I think it'll go okay. Again, it's skewing a tiny bit yellow, but nowhere near 581, so I think it should be okay. So that was the first choice I made. So I took out the original 581, and I threw out my 988, which I had originally tried, and I went with this. So that's the first color change I'm going to make. Then the other one 832. Now 832, it's not my favorite color if I were to look at it. I like all different options, and sometimes you have to trust it because you put it into the fabric as shown in the design, and it comes out okay. But against this fabric, I just really wasn't loving this. And this was the top of a flower, and it is paired with 221. So that's the pairing of the flower, the top and the bottom of the flower. And if you put it up there, I wasn't caring for that at all. Now, when I originally looked at 832, let me see where it is in my book again. So I go back to my back section and I look up 832. It is 13, row 13 now instead of 12, which is somewhat similar families, of course, if you look next to them. So right now we have row 13. This is the row that 832 is in. 581 was here. So you can see we have some crossovers there. So 832 is up here. And it's this top one right underneath my finger. So I looked at the row and I saw there was some yellows. And so I did look at those. Number 17, number 18, they're in the same family. They were only a couple away from 832. So I gave those a try. And I do have a full set of DMC, so I am able to like play around with the different colors. And it was getting there. It wasn't quite as mustardy or as brown anymore, but it still wasn't, I wasn't feeling it. And then I actually went towards, I said, okay, that's more of a yellow family. And I actually did look at some yellows, but against the 221, I felt like the yellows were, it was a little bit too stark and it didn't quite match. So then I kind of split the difference and I said, all right, I don't want something that's too brown, but I don't want yellow. How about something that's a bit more peachy? And I started to play around with the different colors. And again, I looked at the different rows, and row 14 right here, which is next to where the original 832 is, had 3855. So I pulled that out. And it was a little too dark, so I went right in the same family with 3856, and I think I found what I wanted. So a lot of times, you know, if the colors have just different variations of the same shade, just lighter or darker, that's how I play around with. So let me show you these two together first. So there's my two, if you can see. I usually, when I have extra DMC, I just wrap it around the label. So I've used this 221 before. So that's what I'm looking at. Top of the flower, bottom of the flower. And then if I put it against here, I thought that was a much better mix, with the peach kind of blending a little bit more into that 221 without having to change up the 221. And then it's just snowballing as to all the different colors I'd have to change. Before too long, I'd be changing all of them, which is fine. I mean, if that's what works, then that's what we go with. So I'm going to show you now. We take out these two out of the original, and I put in the two that I am switching it with. And let's see if I can show them, how well I can show them against the fabric here. And that now becomes my new color palette. It blends a little bit more seamlessly. It's not quite as stark a difference. So here you go. These are the two that I took out. And they all still seem to be in the same family, and they all seem to look nice against the green. So I'm going to put aside the ones that I have decided against, and this is what I'm going to use as the color palette. And now I'm able to start the Seasons of the Heart Spring and join along with Katie on her Stitchalong. So hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Every once in a while, I know some of you will reach out to me and ask about colors, and I'm happy to help, realizing that my taste in palettes might be different than yours, but I'm certainly happy to help. And you can disagree with me, that's fine. I have no problem with that because what you like and what I like might be a little bit different, but we can certainly just talk it through. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask. And I think that's it. I just thought it'd be a little bit fun to get this ready and kitted up. And as soon as I saw that I needed to make some changes, I thought it would be a fun thing to do with you. So I hope you're getting lots of stitching in and trying something new. Let Katie know if you're going to join her stitch along and stitch on something with a bunny somewhere in it, because I think she'd be thrilled to have you join her. And until next time, happy stitching.